Hey everybody, welcome to the video. Let's go over the second race of the doubleheader this weekend over at Dover International Speedway, aka the Monster Mile. This one will be on Sunday, August 23rd at around 4 p.m. Eastern. But before we continue, as always, if you guys could just leave a like. I know it's something small, just leaving a like on a video, but the more you guys interact with my content, leaving likes, leaving comments, and all that fun stuff, it will help me out. And you guys already do a good job of that, so I do appreciate that. And if you're new to the channel, you might as well hit that subscribe button. I'm here all season long trying to help you guys become better NASCAR DFS players, and I cover other sports as well, including baseball, which I post videos every single day for. Then we have the NFL coming up shortly, so a lot to look forward to. So if you're going to keep coming back to the channel each and every single day, or each and every single week, you might as well hit that subscribe button and turn the notification bell so you don't miss out whenever I post new content. Also, I go live every single race day, so if you hit that notification bell, you'll get notified when I go live, so you don't want to miss out on that. It's always a good time in the live stream. And if you follow me on social media, I'm at Pennell16 over on Twitter, cpen16 over on IG. Don't really post fantasy stuff on IG, but it's more of a personal account, so you can see my Warzone victories I post on there, and when me and my girlfriend go out to eat, play mini golf, that's all on there. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, feel free to do so, and you can DM me, and I might reply if I see it. And then if you want to support me on Patreon, it's always much appreciated. You can join a community of 300 plus people. You can hop into the Discord chat, and then you just get access to all the extra content that I put out each and every single race day or every single day depending on the sport. And I got my main sheet on there, which has all the data on there that I find really helpful heading into the weekend. My projections, which have been pretty good so far this season. They have taken down multiple tournaments, and I use my projections, play with the exposures, and put in an optimizer, and that's what I do each and every single week. My power rankings, which is just an algorithm-based method that just ranks everybody based on all the numbers I have heading into the weekend, so no bias there. I have my own bias tier rankings based off the salary range, but that's a algorithm-based power rankings method. Then I have the green flag speed cheat sheet, which I find super helpful. Since we don't have practice this season, I think green flag speed is one of the biggest edges we have currently, just looking at how fast drivers have been on certain tire combinations, certain track types, like we're using steep tracks this week, so seeing how fast drivers have been at those steep tracks, and then just overall, pretty much all the green flag speed ratings, they are on there. The cheat sheet, my own personal GPP driver exposures, I build 150 lineups each and every single week, so you'll know exactly what I am playing. Don't give out lineups, but exact GPP driver exposures and 150 max, and notes on each and every single driver. And there's a bunch of other stuff on there as well, like all the optimal lineups so far this season, the heat map, the past oversight analysis, including ownership and all that. Starting position, it's all on there. So sorry to be a long commercial, but I just want to throw it out there what's all available. So if you're interested, links in the description below. If you're not, hey, that's fine. Let's just dive into today's slate. And before we get into the preview, I mentioned in my last video, if you missed it, I ran a free DK contest, which had 100 people, and I'm going to do the same thing again. I know quite a few people have mentioned you should just make it where you pay to get in for Draftkings, but I'll wait to do that until next week if enough people want to do it. But since it's only a day after the last contest, I'm going to keep it the same category or same format. So if you guys want to get into the contest, I'm going to pay out the winner $25. If there's a tie, I got to split it, so everyone got $5 in this one. Sorry, that's just how it worked. It was kind of a chalky lineup that ended up winning. But if you guys want to enter, just comment your DK username below, and I will send you a personal invite. I mean, you can say something else if you want, say something nice, say something mean. If you say something mean, I'll probably just not invite you. But if you want to get into the contest, just comment your DK username below, and I will send you an invite. And the first 100 people get in. I mean, I was surprised at how many people won the contest. We probably could have filled 200, but I'm going to keep it at 100 for this weekend. And like I said, if you want in, come join in. But I did want to shout out the winners. Oddly enough, I actually ended up winning, but I tied with a couple of people. But the winning lineup was Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, Austin Dillon, Ty Dillon, and Corey LaJoie. That was the lineup my projections like the most, so I pretty much just plug in my highest projected lineup each and every single weekend. It ended up taking first in this contest for you guys, but I did want to shout out the winners. Shout out to me, but shout out to Maximus_2017, Chase Piot, I think that's how you're saying name. My girlfriend, I promise I did not give her the lineup. She made it herself. She uses my own spreadsheets and it looks at the projections, so it just makes sense. So shout out to you. And then shout out to Short Round 24 and the Clyde. So I think I've pretty much messaged every single person that has won, but I don't think I've gotten to the Clyde yet. So can you please reach out to me and I will PayPal you the money. But like I said, if you guys won in the contest, just comment your username down below, and then let's get into the preview of this race. And before we get into the preview, sorry, it's like been 5 minutes, we haven't gotten to anything yet, but a lot of stuff I wanted to talk about, and you guys can just skip through it if you don't like it anyway. So, the live stream going to be around 2 p.m. again. I mean, I'd imagine not around 2 p.m. It's going to be at 2 p.m. since the race starts at 4. I think 2 p.m. is probably a good time. So I would be on the lookout for the live stream at 2 p.m. Eastern. Hop in. Always a good time. I really do enjoy doing the live streams. Pretty much just a Q&A video for the most part. But the preview of this race, it's the same exact thing. It's the same exact sponsor. It's the Drydene 311. We are at Dover International Speedway, a.k.a. the Monster Mile. It is a steep track. It's not really comparable to other tracks, but if you do want to compare it to one, I would say most comparable to Bristol. It's kind of like a bigger Bristol, but even then it's not the exact same. And you could also look at some other steeper tracks as well, kind of like Darlington. And we're going to have 311 laps, and that means we have quite a bit of Dominator points available at 233.25 Dominator points available. Now, the tricky thing this week is on Saturday, or I should say Sunday, not this week. On Saturday, pretty much all the Dominators were starting up front besides Kyle Busch. So it made it easier just to stack the front because we're like, yeah, Denny Hamlin should lead some laps, Chase Elliott should lead some laps, Truex should lead some laps, and then Kyle Busch should be a factor near the mid to end of the race, and that's what exactly happened for the most part. Now we have all the guys that should lead the most laps today starting, in the teens for the most part. So the thing is, we can't play this as a straight place differential race because we have 311 laps. When we were at Michigan and we were at Pocono with the double headers, it made it easy just to stack these back guys because Dominator points weren't that important. It was mainly just a finishing position race and place differential race. But, I mean, we're going to have 311 laps here, and obviously these guys are going to get up front pretty quick, but it might take a little bit. And if a guy like Matthew DiBenedetto on the pole leads 50-plus laps, only, 60, I think he's only 6,800, yeah, he'll probably make the optimal as long as he doesn't wreck out of the race. So keep that in mind. I wouldn't play just a straight PD race. I think you should target some of these guys starting up front, but for the most part, most of your exposures should be coming from these place differential-ish plays, but you're going to want to target some guys up front because if a guy like MDB or Almirola that's starting up front leads a lot of laps early, good chance they make the optimal. So don't forget about the guys starting up front, even though they won't look as good of plays as the guys like Chase Elliott, Harvick, the guys starting farther back. So that's pretty much it for the preview, guys. I mean, we're going to have the same track, and there's really not much else to talk about. So let's get into the driver-by-driver breakdown. And I literally just uploaded the starting positions and the salaries, so I'm not even exactly sure where everyone's starting. So we are going through this together. So this will be just our first go at it. So you'll get my very first thought opinions on these. But up top, we have Kevin Harvick, 11,700. He is starting 17th, and I think he's a fine option. I mean, he had one of the best cars on Saturday. He was third in average green flag speed. Technically, Kurt Busch was first, which means Hamlin was second, Truex third, and so on. But I'm going to disregard Kurt Busch because the guy ran, 10, 8, 9 laps. So you kind of got to disregard that. Now, Harvick was one of the best cars on the track. Now, they did not dominate the race, and it looked like he was going to because he was flying through the field when he had a double pit because they didn't get the lug nuts tightened, I believe, and he was absolutely flying. I'm like, well, Kevin Harvick's going to get up front at some point and just dominate this race and win. Somehow was not the case. Now, he finished strong. He got to the top 5, and look, he's going to be one of the top plays on the slate. But I think there is better plays at better prices. Like Denny Hamlin, 10,600. I imagine he's going to end up probably being the highest on play on the slate, if not Kurt Busch. But so even though he's starting 17th, he's a great play, but I don't think he's the absolute best play on the slate, especially at a massive price tag of 11,700. But he's a threat to win this race. He had one of the fastest cars, and he's also great at Michigan. And I actually did get to update the statistics here. So these are the updated stats, including yesterday's race. So he's averaging nearly 90 DraftKings points per race here, average finish of 6, running position of 5.8, drive rating 121.1, has a win, 4 top 5s, still averaging the most laps led per race and the most fast laps, and we know how great Kevin Harvick's been this season. You guys get the idea. Now, I'm not going to go through these statistics like I did in the preview video on Friday because we're at the same track, so not much has changed. I mean, obviously Denny Hamlin added a win to his column, but that's pretty much it for the most part. But yeah, Kevin Harvick, obviously a fantastic play. For the most part, I'm going to be mixing and matching these guys. Now, I'm going to be heaviest on Hamlin and Truex and probably Elliott. I can tell you that. I mean, Kyle Busch. I mean, I'm just going to play the fastest cars yesterday, which is what I usually do on these doubleheaders. The cars that were fast on Saturday are probably going to be fast once again. And I think we see Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex. I think all these guys are going to be running up front for the most part. So, like all these guys, just mix and match and just whoever one you like the most, that's who I would go heaviest on. And speaking of one of the best cars yesterday, we had Martin Truex Jr. 11,300 starting 19th. He looked like he was going to be one of the threats. I thought he was going to win the race. Denny Hamlin ended up storming by. He went into pit road very well, gained some time there, and he was just too good yesterday. Just too good. And I mean, Truex could not hold him off, but he had one of the best cars. He led the second most laps yesterday, and he was second in green flag speed, right behind Denny Hamlin. He's starting 19th. He's averaging 72 Draftkings points per race here, average finish of 4.7. 5 top fives here the past 6 races, has a win. I mean, some of the most laps led, some of the most fast laps. I see no reason at all not to like Truex here. I mean, 11,300, you get a little bit of savings off of Harvick, and he's starting 2 spots further back, and he was a better car yesterday, and I like him a lot. So, I mean, I know it's easy to say I like Truex, but it's true. Truex should be one of my highest owned drivers, along with a lot of these guys. I'm going to be very heavy on this 10K plus tier, so we're going to have to be digging into some cheaper options, which I have not really gone too in-depth into any of the looking down here, but I think we got a couple of fine options, so it shouldn't be too hard to fit these guys in. And if we compare them with an upfront dominator like MDB or Almirola, it's not going to be as difficult, although Almirola's 9,000, but we'll get there when we get there. So yeah, like Truex, like Harvick, I like all these guys just to make it simple. Chase Elliott, 10,900, starting 16th. So he led all the laps up to the competition caution, but after that, Austin Dillon stayed out with Matt Kenseth. Some guys took some 2-tire stops, and that kind of shuffled him to the back. And then he got into it with Clint Boyer a little bit, got a tire rub, had a limp out the end of the first stage. And then they fixed the damage, and then he started like 30th, and he never got back up front, like to the very front, but he still had a fast car. He picked up, 41 fast laps, and still scored 62 fantasy points because he got a 5th place finish. So he overcame a lot, and he had a really good car. He was 5th in average green flag speed yesterday, and he's great at Dover. We know that. I talked about that quite a bit. And I mean, it was looking like he was going to be a bust for a while, but props to Elliott for overcoming the tire rub issue with Clint Boyer, and he still had one of the best cars. And starting 16th at 10,900, yeah, you got to like him here. He is excellent at Dover. He has a win recently, 4 top 5s, and just some of the best numbers overall here. 53.5 laps led per race, 26.7 fast laps, and I see no reason at all not to like Chase Elliott. If you're looking at the green flag speed of this with this tire combination this season, heading into Sunday, I had to relook at the updated numbers, but heading into Saturday, Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin were the fastest cars in this tire combination, and they had some of the fastest cars. So, I mean, that's been an indication of speed this season, looking at the average green flag speed of all these averages, which is why that's something I've been relying heavily on this season. So I like Chase Elliott starting 16th. Definitely someone you're going to want to mix and match in there. And then the best play on the slate, I guess that's what we're going to call him, 10,600, starting 20th. He's going to be so high owned. And I was honestly surprised at Denny Hamlin's ownership on Saturday. I thought he was going to be like over 40% owned. He was only 30% owned. I had 50% Hamlin. I saw that and I was like, well, I wish I went more. I was thinking he was going to be 45, and I was like, I'll just play 50, never know what can happen. But surprisingly low owned, but that's not going to be the case this time. He is starting 20th, so he's got the best starting spot of this place differential dominator group here, and he had the best car yesterday. He was first in average green flag speed. If you just disregard Kurt Busch's number, he won the race. He overtook Truex at the end, and the guy just had a ton of speed, and he's had speed all season. He's been the fastest car at this tire combination this year, and he's been great at the steep tracks, and I see no reason at all not to like Denny Hamlin. I assume he's going to be my highest owned driver, if maybe Kurt Busch, because he's starting 28th at 8,300, but definitely like Denny Hamlin. He's going to be the chalk of all chalk. I think you just plug him in cash games, and then you try to get different somewhere else, because I see no reason why his speed won't translate to Sunday's race. I mean, we've seen him at double headers. He was fast in the first race. He's fast again, and I would expect we see the same thing once again here for Denny Hamlin. So love him. I'm going to make the thumbnail in this video. Brad Keselowski, 10,400, starting 12th. So he's more of the tournament option up here. Like, I'd play every single one of these guys in cash games. Like, you can make a case for Harvick in cash, Truex in cash, Elliott, or Cash. Hamlin's the obvious play, and then you got Kyle Busch starting 18th at 10,000. Yeah, that makes sense. So Brad Keselowski should be the guy that goes a little bit overlooked. So I don't hate being overweight on him in tournaments. He had a good car on Saturday. He was, 6th in average green flag speed. He was working his way up to the very front at one point in the race. He was running 3rd, ended up fading back a little bit, which sometimes he tends to do that, fades a little bit at the end, but I think he's a fine option here. I mean, if you're looking at his numbers at Dover, he's got 0 top 5s here recently, but 3 top 10s. He has led quite a bit of laps here. Average running position of 6.8, which is excellent. And he's been one of the most consistent cars this season, and I mean, he just usually finds a way to get there at the end. So in tournaments, I like Keselowski. Everybody else is cash viable here. I would not go Kes in cash games, but I like the lower price on Keselowski, and he should be decently low. I imagine he's going to be below 15%, because these guys are going to be soaking up a ton of ownership, so not going to be too easy to fit in Keselowski. So I like him, but only for tournaments. Kyle Busch, 10,000. You know what? It feels pretty good to be on the Kyle Busch train, or to be right on the Kyle Busch train, because I was saying I like Kyle Busch. It felt rough to say out loud. People were asking me questions, Blaney, Kyle Busch, and I kept saying Kyle Busch, and I'm like, this is only going to backfire, isn't it? Well, it actually ended up working out. He had a pretty darn good car. I think he picked up nearly 25 fast laps. Honestly, it looked like he could have won the race at the end, but didn't have quite the car that Truex and Denny Hamlin did, but he was still fast. He was 7th in average green flag speed, and he looked pretty darn good, and this is a good track for him, and I'm going to go right back to the well here, and he's at a cheaper price point, too. He's starting a couple of spots further up, but at 10,000, starting 18th, Kyle Busch is going to end up being one of my higher-owned drivers on the slate. It was good to see him have a good race, and I don't see why he can't do it again unless he wrecks, which is obviously everyone's capable of wrecking, so I can't project that. But definitely like Kyle Busch here. If you're looking at his numbers at Dover recently, has a win, 2 top 5s, 5 top 10s. And if you're looking at his season numbers, he now has 11 top 5s, which is third right behind Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick. Even though he's not winning races, he is putting together some really strong finishes. He's just not dominating. Like we only saw 8.9 laps led per race this season, which is by far lower than the rest of this group. But I mean, the potential was there on Saturday, and I think he's going to be a contender once again. And again, with Kyle Busch, we always say the guy needs practice. Well, he just got 311 miles of practice yesterday, and he ran really well. So I definitely like Kyle Busch here. One of my favorite plays on this slate at only 10,000. Now we'll drop into this 9K range where it falls off a cliff a little bit in terms of being a great play. But Ryan Blaney, 9,800, starting 7th. I wasn't that high on him on Saturday, and I'm not that high once again on him. He's a threat to lead laps early on. Let's just sort this through starting order and see the guys that are in front of him. Because, again, this is my first time really looking at the entire slate. So you got MDB, Newman, Ty Dillon, Almirola, Buescher, Dillon, Blaney. So really the only guys I think are going to be capable lap leaders up front here are MDB, Almirola, and Blaney for the most part. I mean, Austin Dillon had a really good run yesterday where he stayed up front and he stayed out and ended up leading quite a bit of laps, which is very great for my lineups. I do appreciate that, Austin Dillon, but I don't see him working his way up front. So really the only guys I think are going to lead laps, that had the potential to lead laps early on. You can even throw Jones in the mix. So starting inside the top 10, Jones, Blaney, Almirola, MDB. So I think Blaney and Almirola probably get to the front pretty quick. I think MDB could hold his own as well. He's in good equipment. He's also pretty good at the steep track. So I think Blaney is actually interesting here in tournaments just to try to see if he can lead some laps early on. It's just Dover's not a great track for him, and he did not run that well whatsoever on Saturday. And he grabbed a 14th place finish. He was nearly 12K, didn't crack the top 10 in average green flag speed. So it doesn't make me too confident, but we also saw his price drop about exactly $2,000, which does make him interesting. He's had one of the best cars so far this season. It's just he's not that great at steep tracks for the most part, but he's a tournament option that could potentially lead laps early on. So I have some minor interest in there just because I think one of these guys does lead a pretty good chunk of laps early on until Denny Hamlin or someone just comes in and just probably runs away with the race. So one of these guys will lead laps early on, but it's going to be tough to pick which one. I mean, MDB's in the best spot, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if someone like Almirola or Blaney overtake him, or even Jones. Joey Logano, 9,600, pretty much a tournament option just like Brad Keselowski, but to be honest, I'm not really on Logano for the most part. The price is fine, it's just Dover's not been an amazing track for him. He doesn't typically dominate here. He's only averaging 3.8 laps led per race the past 6 races. Only 1 top 5, 3 top 10s, which is fine. He's getting good finishes, but I think there's more upside elsewhere. I mean, he had an 8th-place finish. He was 9th in average green flag speed. Probably going to finish around where he starts. So he's probably going to gain a few spots. I was thinking he was starting 9th. He's probably going to gain a few spots, should crack the top 10, but I just don't see him being a threat to dominate this race. Now, I mean, the guys starting up front are pretty weak for the most part, so maybe he just surges his way there and he, happens to lead laps early on, so maybe sprinkle him in tournaments. I think I played around 8 to 10% yesterday. Obviously didn't equate to much, but I think you just sprinkle in a little bit Joey Logano in case he happens to lead laps early. Jimmy Johnson, 9,200. He saw a $1,200 price increase, starting 14, so there's more PD upside compared to when he was starting 6 yesterday. But, I mean, he's just a bit expensive. But I do think he's playable here. I mean, we know how good Jimmy Johnson is at Dover, the king of Dover. Starting 14th, he finished 7th place on Saturday, and he was also 8th in average green flag speed. So I think he should crack the top 10, should be a contender for the top 5. I don't think it's likely he finishes in the top 5, but he should be in contention for a top 5, should get a top 10 finish, and He's more of a tournament option to me because he's 9,200, and if I'm going to want to jam in all these guys like Busch, Elliott, Truex, Hamlin, all these guys, it's not going to be easy to fit in these 9K guys. So you're going to be sacrificing one of these guys up top, but I don't hate Jimmy Johnson in tournaments, but you're probably sacrificing a guy like Kyle Busch, which doesn't make me feel too great. And if you're looking at his numbers at Dover, I mean, I said I'm not going to keep doing this, but great numbers, obviously a top 5, 4 top 10s. Did have a recent win in the Saturday video, but that has now gone away, as that would have been the 7th race, so unfortunate for Jimmy Johnson, but he's fine at Dover. Eric Almirola at 9,000, he's starting 4th, so he's one of the guys that I think has potential to lead laps early on, which does make him playable. Now, he was not great in the first race where he finished 17th. I mean, he just didn't have a great day. Now, I know he had a pit because of, I believe it was a tire issue or a vibration issue, so that kind of killed his day. He was running fine before that, but after that, it wasn't that great. He didn't crack the top 10 in average green flag speed. But starting 4th, I mean, really, the only guy that's going to give him trouble here is MDB, and overall, Almirola has been the better car this season, and if you're looking at this tire combination, I believe he was 4th in average green flag speed heading into Saturday. So I think the potential is there. Dover's not a great track for him. No top 5s, no top 10s, and only 2 top 15s. But as well as he's ran this season, it would not surprise me if he got up front and led some laps early. So I think you should maybe take a couple of shots with Almirola starting up front just in case he leads like 50, 70 laps early on, because that's definitely possible. But overall, I don't think he's as good of a play as these guys all the way up top, obviously, but that comes with the price as well. So I don't hate Almirola in tournaments because I think one of these guys is going to have a decent shot into the optimal if they lead all the laps early on. And Almirola, I mean, he should be able to get around Newman, and who else is there? Ryan Newman's 2nd, MDB's 1st, which I no disrespect to MDB, I think he's going to be fine up there. But Ty Dillon's not going to hang, so really for the most part, MDB and Almirola should be the 2 favorites to lead laps early on for the most part, and then throw in Blaney as well. And then dropping down to the 8K range, we have Eric Jones, 8,800. He is starting 9th. I think he's an okay option. The price came down a little bit. He was 9,200 starting 13th last race. Now he's starting 9th at 8,800. I think he's an okay play. Now, to be honest, I played I played 1% Eric Jones yesterday, and I played 0% Blaney. So I just want to throw that out there that I'm not completely biased against these guys. I know the weeks where I want to play them. I know the weeks I don't want to play them. He's okay. I don't think he's really going to lead laps early on. He's got one of the best cars up front, but I mean, right behind him, he's going to have Logano, Johnson, Keselowski, and then I think Hamlin and those guys get there by the point Jones would get there. So I'm not in love with Eric Jones here. He's starting a little bit too close to the front for me. He was not top 10 in average green flag speed yesterday, so I really think he's probably going to finish around 9th to 12th place for the most part. So not a lot of interest in Eric Jones, but he's a GPP target to sprinkle in at lower ownership. Alex Bowman, 8,600. Look, I liked him in tournaments, but he had no chance after he got, I almost said the injury, this isn't baseball, after he got some damage with the Kurt Busch wreck. It just absolutely killed the speed of that car. So I'm going to give him a pass there because besides that, last year he was great at Dover. 2018 he sucked here, but at Michigan, or why do I keep saying Michigan? At Dover, he had 2 top 5 finishes in a row last season, and he made 2 optimal lineups in a row. Now, he's going to be going to the back because he's obviously fixing some things and going to a backup car. So he'll be going to the rear, but he's starting 21st, 8,600. I think he is playable. Now, if he avoided an incident, we have no idea how good he would have ran. I think he was doing okay to start, but obviously the damage, I mean, he can come back from that. But if you're looking at his numbers at Dover, the past 5 races, he does have 2 top 5 finishes like I talked about, and if we're looking at his steep track numbers, 2 top 5s, 4 top 10s the past 10 races, looking at his numbers this season, he's a guy that runs well, but he just can't get good finishes, and that kind of goes to show yesterday. The guy just can't get good finishes. Average running position of 13.1, but average finish of 18.2. Has a win this season, which was at Fontana, which they are using that same tire combination. And actually looking at the green flag speed heading into Saturday, he was 3rd green flag speed right behind Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin with this tire combination. So I have some decent hopes for him in this race. Now, he's going to be starting in the rear, so he's going to have to make up some ground, but it's not like I'm expecting him to dominate, so I really don't care that he's going to the back, really. I mean, it might just lower his ownership. So I think he's an okay play. I mean, he should be a top 10 contender here, but just know he's a risky guy. He's kind of like Eric Jones, where although Eric Jones has been running pretty well, we haven't had many incidents for Eric Jones recently, but I mean, he's just one of those guys that tends to just get caught up in the mess at some point or something goes wrong for him. So just be careful with Bowman, but I like the starting spot, and I think he should be able to make up the ground decently quick. Then going down to Kurt Busch, 8,300. I think he's pretty much one of the top plays on the slate. He will also be going to the rear, but starting 28th. Sorry to pause really quick so I forget exactly where I left off, but Kurt Busch, he got the damage early on, so he only ran like about 10 laps. He finished last. That's what happened. So, also, if you're wondering why he's not starting 40th why he's starting 28th instead of 40th, it's because they did the top 20 invert, then 21st through 40th, they're doing the formula for the starting position. So, it kind of helps him in that respect, but he's going to the back, so it doesn't even matter anyway, but he should be able to make his spots pretty quick, and I like Kurt Busch a lot. I mean, he's pretty good at Dover if you're looking at his numbers. He's got 2 top 5s recently, 3 top 10s, 4 top 15s, starting 28th, 8,300. I mean, he's pretty much like a cash game lock. I mean, he's just going to grade out really well for me. I mean, he's got 4 top 10s at steep tracks recently, a top 5. And he's been one of the more consistent cars this season. I know last race didn't really boost your confidence in that, but for the most part, he's got an average finish of 11.9, running position of 13.4, 4 top 5s, 13 top 10s this year. So he's been fine. I like Kurt Busch starting 28th. I imagine he's going to be very, very popular, even though he's going to a backup car, but his backup car is going to be better than most cars out there. So I like Kurt Busch a lot. Clint Bowyer, 8,200. I also like him. I don't know if he's going to be that popular, but I definitely think he's a really good tournament option. I mean, he was running very, very well on Saturday. I mean, he was 4th in average green flag speed, right behind Hamlin, Truex, and Harvick. He finished 6th, and he looked pretty darn good, and he's pretty good at these steep tracks, and he proved that at Dover. If you're looking at his numbers at Dover recently, the past 6 races, only 1 top 5, but 5 top 10s, average running position of 8.3, drive rating of nearly 100. If you're looking at his steep track numbers, the past 10 races, he's got 5 top 10s, 1 top 5, average running position of 10.7. I think he's a pretty good play here. 8,200 is a fair price tag, and with everyone going to Kurt Busch, I think Clint Bowyer should be lower owned, and I definitely like that as a pivot. You can play both, obviously, but I prefer Kurt Busch just because he's starting 28th, but I think both are fine options, and I like the speed that Clint Bowyer showed on Saturday. And dropping down to Chris Buescher, you can't play Chris Buescher. I mean, he's nearly 8,000, which I don't get, and he's starting 5th, so he's going to move back, and I would not play Chris Buescher. But he finished 16th? Yeah, 16th on Saturday, which probably right around where he's going to finish once again. So I don't see how you can play Buescher. William Byron, 7,700. He's starting 23rd. He really struggled on Saturday, but I like him here starting 23rd. He was having some issues, but the price is nice, and if you're looking at his numbers at Dover, it's not the biggest sample size, only 5 races in his career here, but running position of 15.8. He's got a top 10, 3 top 15s, and 4 top 20s. I think he'll be okay here. I mean, that car has had some speed this season. He's one of those guys that tends to get into some trouble here and there, but 7,700 starting 23rd, he's going to be a pretty good place differential play. Looking at his numbers at steep tracks the past 10 races, running position of 14, 85 driver rating, 3 top 10s, and 5 top 15s. So I think William Byron's a fine play here. Michael McDowell, 7,500. He is starting 25th, and he just seems a bit expensive here. He finished 26th on Saturday, and it's probably right around where he's going to finish once again. He has not been that great at Dover, and he is just way too expensive to me. 7,500 for a guy that's probably going to finish around 25th place. There's just not much upside here. If you're looking at his numbers at Dover, finish of 24.8, average running position of 25.1, no top 20s. He's pretty much a 25th place car here, and he's just way overpriced. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., 7,300, starting 11th. I liked him in tournaments yesterday, and he did very, very well. Did he make the optimal lineup? I think he did. Okay, he did not, but he was close to it. He scored about 50 fantasy points at 6,200. He was next on play, he finished 10th, even picked up some fast laps, and this is his best track type. He is very good at the steep tracks. Now, the problem is he's starting 11th, and he's 7,300, so it kind of puts him in a tough spot here, but I guess he's somewhat of a tournament player, but I can't see myself having too much Ricky Stenhouse starting 11th, especially at 7,300. If he was 6,200 again, yeah, I wouldn't mind taking some stabs because he was pretty fast. He was 10th in average green flag speed yesterday. Pretty darn good, and he had a clean race too, which is not something we can say about Stenhouse too often. So he's an intriguing tournament play, but I don't like the price, and I also don't like the starting position either. But if you're looking at his numbers at Dover, I mean, he's got, 2 top 10s recently, 3 top 15s, 5 top 20s, so he could hang around 11th, and he could gain a spot or two, but it's just a tough spot to be in at that price tag. Austin Dillon, 7,200, starting 6th, so, I mean, we kind of lucked out in a way that, because he stayed out and was able to lead a lot of laps early on because he wasn't having the best of race. But those dominator points really gave him a nice cushion. I believe he finished a lap down because he stayed out forever, led some laps at the end of the race, and came in late. But those dominator points were very helpful. I was not expecting him to dominate, but thank you, Austin Dillon, for staying out. It really helped for DFS purposes. But starting 6th, I don't think he's going to lead laps in this race. Could he? Because he's one of the cars that are staying up front. He did it yesterday, and that was mainly due to the track position, but I'm not seeing myself landing on too much Austin Dillon. Now, he's been pretty darn good at the steep tracks. If you're looking at his numbers, the past 10 races at steep tracks, average finish of 13.5, 4 top 10s, a top 5, 7 top 15s, 9 top 20s. But he's not a place differential play, and I just don't really like him that much at 7,200, starting 6th, so probably a pass there. Cole Custer, 7,100, starting 10th. He's had one race here. He finished 11th, and he actually ran very well. He won here before in the Xfinity Series, which gave me a little bit of confidence in him heading into the weekend. And he actually ended up delivering. I believe he made the optimal lap. I think he scored 44 DraftKings points, so looked pretty darn good. But starting 10th, he's going to have to gain some spots or finish right where he starts, which I'm just not really going to expect that from Cole Custer here. He's fine just to sprinkle in because a lot of these guys are starting up closer up than they should, so we're going to have to be forced to make some tough decisions down here, but Custer's okay. The price is nice. It's just I think he's more than likely going to move back in spots. Christopher Bell, 6,900. He is starting 24th. He finished 22nd, but I think he's an okay option. He was good here in the Xfinity Series, and he's below 7K, and he's a good place differential play in 24th. I mean, the race he just had wasn't too much of a confidence boost, but he should contend for a top 20 here. I like the price tag. I actually think he should gain some ownership starting 24th below 7K because we've seen multiple top 10, top 15 runs from Christopher Bell this season. If you're looking at his season statistics, he's got a top 5 top 10s, 8 top 15s, and 10 top 20s. So I think he's a fine option at 6,900. Now, I think the most interesting play on the slate here is MDB on the pole at 6,800. So if he comes out, leads 50-plus laps in the pole, he's pretty much making the optimal because that's quite a bit of Dominator points at a very cheap price point. The problem is he was not good at all on Saturday, so it's a little iffy here. I mean, he hit up front, led a couple of laps early on because he just didn't pit for a while, but that's the only reason he got up front, led any laps. But if you're looking at his numbers at steep tracks, they are pretty good. I mean, he's got an average finish of 14th, running position of 16th, 2 top 5s, 4 top 10s, 6 top 15s, and 8 top 20s. He's also in pretty good equipment, and he's pretty good at short tracks. But, oh, man, if he loses spots early on, I mean, we could say goodbye to him because that clean air should be helpful for him at first. But if he loses that, he's probably going to dip quite a bit. But we saw where clean air and track position really helped out Austin Dillon because he had no tires, and the guys behind him had tires, and he sat out in front of Denny Hamlin for quite some time. So I definitely think he's going to be capable of leading laps here. He's going to have to hold off guys like Eric Almirola, Ryan Newman, which I don't think is going to be too much of a threat, but Eric Almirola, Ryan Blaney, Eric Jones early on. So I think there's a decent chance he could lead 10, 20, 30. If we're lucky, he runs away 50-plus laps here, and at 6,800, that's definitely going to be viable. So he should be on your radar. He's not someone to just cross off because you're like MDB in the pool. He's not going to do anything. Well, I mean, he's in good equipment. He's got a good car, and he's had some strong runs this season. So it would not surprise me if he leads quite a bit of laps, and it's really easy to pair him with some place differential plays. Like 6,800 for a Dominator, that's easy. You can easily fit in Harvick, Truex, Elliott, Hamlin, Keselowski, Busch. So I don't mind using some MDB on this slate. I'm not sure how much ownership I'm going to have on him. I'll have a better idea tomorrow in the live stream, but again, this is my first look at the slate, so I'm thinking MDB is going to be fine here, but we'll talk about it when we go live tomorrow. Ryan Newman, 6,600, starting second. Look, if you think he's going to pass MDB early on, go for it, but I just don't really think he's got the juice in his car to do it. I mean, MDB is in nearly a Penske car. He's going to have Almirola right behind him, and MDB is going to have the advantage on the restart of the race or the start of the race. So I'm not really interested in Newman. I'd rather play MDB. Tyler Reddick starting 8th at 6,500, so you might think he's starting a little bit too close to the front, but I actually think he's tournament viable on this slate, especially at this price tag at 6,500, starting 8th. He had a 13th place finish yesterday, which was pretty darn good because he was starting 16th, and he did fine. I believe he scored around 35 DraftKings points, which was fine for his price tag at 7,100. And now starting 8th, I think he's most likely going to move back, but he is pretty good with his tire combination. If you're looking at the finishes he's had on this tire combination, I believe he finished 11th at Fontana, 7th at Darlington 1, 11th or 13th at Darlington 2, and then he at Homestead, which is another place they ran this tire at, the left side tires. He honestly had a car that looked like could dominate and win the race. I mean, he picked up so many fast laps. I think he scored nearly 80 DraftKings points that race. So even though he's starting 8th, I think he can afford to lose a spot or two, but if he can pick up some fast laps and hang around the top 10 at 6,500, we will take that. And again, he's crushed this tire combination, and looking at the average game flag speed department, he checked out well on that as well, which is something I like to use to try to see who's going to have a good run on these racetracks. And I mean, Tyler Reddick's pretty fine option here, I think, starting 8th. It's risky, but I like the price tag. Matt Kenseth at 6,300. He is starting 22nd, and And unfortunately, I think he's going to be an okay play because they dropped his price to 6,300. Like, they're pricing him as a scrub. Even though he has driven kind of like a scrub in a lot of races this season, I think he should be priced a little bit more. He did finish 23rd on Saturday, so it's really not that encouraging. But starting 22nd, he should contend for a top 20, top 15 here. And he did have to go to the rear for speeding, I believe, at one point, so that kind of threw him back a little bit as well. But if he can have a clean race, should be a top 20 contender. He's only 6,300, so I don't mind Matt Kenseth here. I think he's an okay option at that price tag. John Hunter Nemechek at 6,100. He's starting 27th, and he finished 24th yesterday, which 6,100 starting 27th. If he can get me a top 25, top 20 finish, I will take it. He's had multiple top 20 finishes so far this season. If you're looking at his numbers, he has 8 top 20s this season, 4 top 15s, even a top 10, and that top 10 was at Darlington, which is also another steep track. And if we're looking at 7 races at steep tracks this season, he's got an average finish of 21st, 1 top 10, 2 top 15s, and 3 top 20s. So at 6,100, I think he's a fine option. Bubba Wallace, 6,000. He is starting 26th. He finished 27th on Saturday. Again, it doesn't give me too much encouragement, but I think he's okay at the price tag. I mean, if you're looking at his numbers at steep tracks the past 10 races, he's got an average finish of 18.4, running position of 21, 2 top 10s, 4 top 15s, and 6 top 20s. So I think he's fine at this price tag. Ty Dillon, 5,800, starting 3rd. No, thank you. I'll leave it at that. Suarez, 5,700. He is starting 31st. Now, if you're looking at his numbers at Dover, you're thinking, yeah, this is a rock star play. But don't forget, he's not in good equipment anymore. He's in an absolute lawnmower, and he finished 30th place on Saturday. It's probably right around where he's going to finish once again. So, and you can play him, hoping he gains a few spots, but I really don't like Suarez too much. I'd rather play the guys priced below him, like Ryan Preece, LaJoie, and Timmy Hill. And, or I was thinking someone else is below him, but I guess Ty Dillon was 5,800, but she's starting way too high. I was thinking of yesterday's slate, where Ty Dillon was 5,500, starting, 25th. So Ty Dillon's no longer an option. But Ryan Preece, starting 29th at 5,600. I'd have to imagine he's going to end up being pretty popular here. He finished 25th on Saturday. He should be able to gain quite a few spots here. Not quite a few, but a handful of spots. Should contend for a top 20 for the most part. Top 20, top 25. Only 5,600, 29th. In 3 races here, he's got an average finish of 24th. Running position of 23.2. He's got a top 20. Looking at his numbers at steep tracks, average running position of 23rd, 4 top 20s. I think he's going to be a pretty chalky option down here because there's not a lot of options. I mean, you're pretty much looking at Preece and LaJoie for the cheap options on this race. Then Corey LaJoie, 5,500. He is starting 30th. His price did rise up a little bit from 5,000 to 5,500, but I think he'll be okay. He finished 29th, which isn't great, but he's dirt cheap, starting 30th. He's had a couple of top 20 finishes this season, but for the most part, he's a 20th to 25th place car, or 20th to 30th place car, and the price is fine. He shouldn't really kill you. He shouldn't lose many spots. He should be able to gain a couple of spots as well. If you're looking at his numbers at steep tracks recently, running position of 27.6. Looking at his numbers this season, running position at 26th and 4 top 20s. So I think LaJoie's fine, but after LaJoie, I wouldn't really play anybody. I can't play Hill, Yaley, Bulicki, Gase, Sorensen, Smithley, Poole, McLeod, Half. I'm just not playing these guys. They don't make optimal lineups ever. Like, they have 0 in the season, so I feel pretty fine just not rostering those guys and exiting them out in my optimizer. But that's gonna be it for the video, guys. If you made it all the way through, please let me know. I'm sorry if I was kind of starting around a little bit, but this is my first rundown through the entire slate. I'm usually a little bit more prepared, but we're on a little bit of a time restraint here, or time constraint here, because the lineup just came out and we have the race tomorrow, so I want to get this out as quick as possible. So it's just my first rundown through the entire slate. So let me know down below if you made it through the entire video. If you want to join the contest, leave your DK username in the comment section below. Leave a like if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. That's pretty much going to be it. I'll see you in the live stream tomorrow at 2 p.m. and hope you guys had a pretty good first race of the doubleheader.